So all you gotta do is, she right. But don't worry, when you hit that gavel, everybody will sit down.
The special meeting of the Annapolis City Council on Tuesday, September 26, 2023 will be called to order at 7:02 p.m. At this time, I will give the invocation, after which we will follow with the Pledge of Allegiance. All those who are willing and able to stand, please bow your heads. Lord God, in these uncertain times, let us follow the ABCs for life: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Buckley, Alderwoman Tierney, Alderwoman O'Neill,
Present.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles,
Present.
Alderwoman Finlayson,
Present.
Alderman Shannon Meyer,
Present.
Alderman Gay, Alderman Savage,
Present.
Alderman Arnett.
Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended to add a city council citation to Allison Colden.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Shoot, I know I was gonna do it. Alderwoman Pendle Charles,
Aye.
Alderman Savage,
Aye.
Alderman Arnett,
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson,
Aye.
Alderman Shannon Meyer.
Aye.
All yes.
Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is ceremonial items, beginning with ID 13423. Annapolis Police Department presents the annual Gone Fishing Awards.
Would everyone here for that award presentation please come forward?
Hi, everyone. I would like to thank Miss Patty for letting me be here. And at this time, I love you, Miss Patty.
Well, I'll do something while we're waiting for Miss Patty. I'll break you. First of all, we're proud of you, and on behalf of the Baltimore Police Department, and we have the Della family here, Annapolis Police Department, I'm sorry, the Annapolis Police Department. I'm sorry, making presumptions. On behalf of the Annapolis Police Department, I want to present you with a certificate of achievement, and it's presented to you, Chris Wills, for your participation in the Annapolis Police Department's first fishing camp and catching the largest fish. The award is given to somebody that we all love, Lieutenant Brian Della, who started the program more than 20 years ago. So way to go, Chris. September 2023, signed by Edward C. Jackson, Chief of Police. That's me. Congratulations. Way to go.
Just on behalf of the city council, we thought you could use a little bit more help in catching more big fish. So we've got your little tackle box to go along as you go out on those fishing trips. So thank you so much for participating in the program.
Thank you.
You're welcome. there is a City of Annapolis citation. This is on behalf of the residents of the City of Annapolis. We're pleased to confer upon you the City Council citation for your participation in the Lieutenant Brian Della Annapolis Police Department 2023 Summer Camp. Fishing Camp. The fishing camp was founded in 2001 by Lieutenant Della and fellow Annapolis police officers. They hope to give children in our community an opportunity to go fishing, get out in nature, learn new skills, and form positive and lasting relationships. Chris, you're receiving this award because biggest fish for catching the biggest fish at the camp. Congratulations on being a top angler, and we hope that you continue to fish.
Thank you.
And while the Della family's coming up, I'll just read the plaque. Chris, your name will be forever inscribed on the plaque, which will hang proudly in the lobby of the Annapolis Police Department. And it reads, in honor of Lieutenant Brian Della, the Annapolis Police Youth Fishing Camp was founded in 2001 by Lieutenant Della and fellow Annapolis Police Department officers. Many of them are here today. They hope to give the children in our community an opportunity to go fishing with others and also to form positive and lasting relationships. Lieutenant Della will always be remembered for how deeply he cared for the community he served. The fish camp, his lasting legacy, continues to leave an extraordinary impact on hundreds of children in the community. And this award is presented annually in honor of Lieutenant Della to the child who catches the biggest fish at the camp. And you are our first recipient. And standing up here today is the Della family, his mom and his brother. So thank you.
Everyone from the Annapolis Police Department will come forward for a photo, please, and the foundation.
Yeah, thank you, Brian Finnan, and thank you, Reverend Colbert, and the men and women of the Annapolis Police Department.
All right, everybody smile. On the count of 47, you ready? Thank you. Thank you very much. And we'd like to acknowledge all the photos that you see around the room at this time, which promotes our fishing camps and everything our community outreach does. Thank you all so much. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is City Council citation to Allison Colden.
Please come forward.
Bunch of wires.
All right, so this is City of Annapolis City Council citation. On behalf of the residents of the City of Annapolis, we're pleased to confer upon you this City Council citation in recognition of your work as a member of the Annapolis Environmental Commission. Allison, you brought great enthusiasm, energy, and expertise to the role, including your term as vice chair. Your expertise in the restoration of coastal ecology and water quality served as a valuable resource to the city. You served as author of many of the Environmental Commission's submissions on planning documents, proposed legislation, and city initiatives, and represented the commission before the City Council and the public. You made significant contributions in the areas of plastic bag and habitat protection legislation, electric mobility, tree conservation, stormwater management, shoreline restoration, and the protection of environmentally sensitive city properties. We thank you for your service in making Annapolis a greener, more sustainable, and more resilient city, and we look forward to working with you in your new role as the Chesapeake Bay Foundation's Maryland Executive Director.
I just want to thank the mayor and city council for the opportunity to serve on the Annapolis Environmental Commission and support your great initiatives. And I look forward to continuing to do so in my new role. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is petitions, reports, and communications, beginning with an update from the mayor.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Acting Mayor Rhonda Pendell Charles, Mayor Gavin Buckley, and City Manager Mike Malinoff are away on city business this evening. They are on a resiliency planning exchange with our county and our Resilience Finance Authority. I want to begin tonight by informing you about the shooting that occurred on Sunday night in our Harbor House community. Unfortunately, one of our city staffers was caught in the crossfire right outside of her home. She is at a hospital and she is receiving the care that she needs. Thankfully, she is going to be okay. Our city staffer who was shot is a professional woman who has worked in the city in various capacities. Her colleagues in the city are all praying for a speedy recovery. To the victim, the family of the victim, her friends and neighbors, and her co-workers in city government, we know how painful this is. And to our city co-workers, please use the city resources that are there for you to help you process this trauma. The Employee Assistance Program is free and available through our Human Resources Department. We would like to thank our Annapolis Police Department for their quick response to the shooting on Sunday night. They were in the neighborhood at the time of the incident. We would also like to acknowledge the heroic efforts of our Annapolis Fire Department and EMS who applied a tourniquet and got her quickly to the hospital. They saved her life. We want every resident of Annapolis to know that our police have good leads in this case. They will find the person or persons responsible, and they will be held accountable, just as arrests have been made in every contact shooting this year. But we know from Sunday night's events that police presence in apprehending criminals is not enough. Shootings and incidents of gunfire continue. It is extremely frightening for neighbors and a vexing problem for everyone. What has been happening in Annapolis regarding gun violence is not, and is never acceptable, and it is not who we are. Gun violence is very frightening to everyone in Annapolis, no matter what neighborhood you may live in. Without a doubt, we take every shooting and every act of violence, yes, every shooting and every act of violence, extremely seriously. With that being said, we continue to work extremely hard each and every day to develop and find solutions. Under Chief Jackson, the Annapolis Police Department has been working even more closely than ever with a variety of and an ever-growing number of county, state, federal, and regional law enforcement partners. We share intelligence to track a variety of illegal activities, which has led to a number of recent drug and weapon seizures. Unfortunately, easy access to guns and increasing gun violence is not isolated to Annapolis. It is a problem across our entire nation. Gun violence in our nation has increased by 40% in the last 10 years. For example, our Annapolis Police Department might take 24 illegal guns off the street tonight, and a week from now, more guns come to take their place. We can solve the immediate problems by removing guns and arresting offenders, but Annapolis is not immune to the macro problems being experienced across our nation. According to Trace, a nonprofit, nonpartisan news organization that tracks gun violence, Americans purchased nearly 60 million guns between 2020 and 2022. Yearly gun sales are running at roughly twice the level of 15 or 20 years ago. There are more guns in homes than ever before. According to a recent report by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, 54% of guns used in crimes and recovered by law enforcement were originally purchased illegally. None of this takes away our responsibility to act locally and to do the work required to keep our communities safe. But real solutions will only be possible if we look at the full context. Our police department has a stellar track record of catching violent offenders and working the cases so that prosecutors can successfully try them in court. But we can't solve the more general issues because we aren't responsible for multi-state gun trafficking. We may be solving the local problem by arresting a violent offender, but we haven't solved the broader problem of an untenable rate of incarceration and the devastation that it brings to family units within our communities. And the way that devastation feeds into cycles of trauma, family breakdown, which can circle back to criminal behavior. Nevertheless, no matter these statistics and data, we will continue to do all of the hard work, 24/7, 366, including leap year, all of the hard work that is necessary in order to combat the scourge on our Annapolis communities. And we will continue to modify our ever-evolving crime plans when it is warranted. As your council's public safety chair, recently I've been attending the mayor's community town halls and pop-up tours and the community listening sessions that I initiated for the purpose of better understanding what is driving this violence in our communities and toward developing and finding grassroots solutions. We have visited and interacted with residents who live in the following Annapolis communities: Newtown Drive, Robinwood, Clay Street at Peoples Park, Bywater Mutual Homes, Eastport Terrace and Harbor House, as well as at Asbury United Methodist Church and the Eastport Library. All of our state and county elected officials, as well as our administrative officials with our county health department and county school systems, were invited to all of these sessions. A final report is being compiled, including a community survey that was conducted. A meeting will be convened with these officials as we will be seeking their tangible support, resources, and strategies when it comes to fulfilling the suggestions and information outlined in the report and survey. Moreover, we will be seeking their wisdom and guidance when it comes to assisting us in reaching out to our federal elected and administrative partners as well. After all, our city's residents, businesses, and visitors are their residents, businesses, and visitors as well. Nevertheless, we will continue to learn from our communities at future community listening sessions and work toward implementing the solutions that we have developed and those that have been brought to us. We know that preventing crime will take a multi-pronged and collaborative effort, and we will continue to ask for our state legislative partners to come to the table to help us with resources and funding. Again, we recognize the way that devastation feeds into cycles of trauma, family breakdown, which can circle back to criminal activities. With that being said, within the city, we have numerous departments consistently working on community outreach initiatives to support individuals and families. Our police department has worked extremely hard under Chief Jackson to implement a true community policing model. This includes an outstanding reentry program to help people develop knowledge and skills that can lead better from crime toward employment and a better future. Our one-year-old, newly created, unprecedented Annapolis Police Community Outreach Division continues to provide numerous programs to support children and teens. These programs and initiatives and experiences and opportunities that children will remember for a lifetime. Just to name a few which we saw tonight, which include chess club, boxing, shop with a cop, food donations and deliveries during the holidays and at other times during the year, camps including fishing, forensics, crabbing, and sailing, field trips to historically Black colleges and universities, including in our own area, Howard, Morgan State, and Coppin State. Field trips to fun places like the Washington Wizards basketball games, or with our Office of Emergency Management, led by Director Simmons, to Patriot Point on the Eastern Shore. And our Annapolis Fire Department, led by Chief Romali, continue to be actively and consistently engaged in a variety of community outreach initiatives. Also, our 3-year-old unprecedented Office of Community Services employs a full-time clinical master's degree social worker, as well as community support specialists who help families with everything: rental assistance, utility bill assistance, housing, job training, workforce connections and opportunities, reentry job assistance, COVID-19 testing, CPR training, health care, access to medical, behavioral, and emotional support health services, substance abuse, school tutoring, summer camp signups, Narcan training, school and academic supports, and connections to daycare. Within the mayor's office, we have 2 full-time programs, one to help with substance use disorder, our NAM program, which is Naptown Anti-Dope Movement, as well as a violence interruption program, No Harm, which is neighbors organizing, helping to avoid and reduce mortality. The No Harm team has also partnered with the County Health Department to bring Cure Violence to Annapolis. This is a violence interruption program that will be implemented in our Eastport Terrace and Harbor House communities. Our mayor and our new school superintendent, Dr. Mark Bedell, along with our Board of Education president, Dr. Joanna Bach-Tobin's involvement, recently convened a roundtable discussion to advance public safety, mentorship, and other initiatives aimed at helping young people navigate our challenging times. We want this to be an ongoing dialogue because our youth are the future of our community. We have spent the past 2 years collaborating with HACA, our housing authority, and the community on choice neighborhoods to develop a plan to redevelop our Eastport Terrace and Harbor House communities into beautiful mixed-income, mixed-use neighborhoods with a specific aim toward integrating public safety into the design. We have our MPDU program, our moderately priced dwelling units program, which offers affordable housing opportunities when a new development is considered. We currently have units available right now at Parkside Preserve. And we offer community grants and distribute HUD's community development block grants. Our city also offers community grants for area nonprofits that provide a wide range of services for our residents that our city cannot. We are continuing to work on local solutions to solve the multitude and multiple problems that can contribute to a loss of hope. Where do we go from here? We need your help too. To use a maritime analogy, if you want to move the ship forward, let's all row in the same direction, all toward positive community goals. We are always looking for constructive solutions, and there needs to be one vexing question asked and answered here. Namely, how did we get to this point in Annapolis? The answer lies in a city-sponsored event from February 2022. I would direct your attention to the State of Black Annapolis discussion, Part 1, the Past Education YouTube, a personal video starting at 45 minutes, 10 seconds, which is located on our city's website. Nobody wants this violence in their communities. We will continue our work to get ahead of it, and we ask for your help to make all of our communities safer. And our promise to you is that funding will not be a barrier. Unfortunately, I want to report that our longtime official recreation and parks photographer, Luke Thompson, passed away unexpectedly last week. At his service over the weekend, hundreds came to pay their respects, a display of how much he was loved. If you've ever seen the Recreation and Parks catalog or any of the photos of the cute kids at camp, you've seen Luke's work. I'd like for us to first watch a quick video of some of his work, and then we will take a moment of silence to honor his memory. Now, a moment of silence. This past weekend, we had a showcase of the #1 reason why our city dock has become an urgent concern, flooding. Floodwaters lapped at the doors of downtown businesses at least twice during high tides in this storm event. We would like to add at this time also a moment of silence for Ms. Sharon Cyrus, who was a longtime executive assistant in Annapolis. She served 7 police chiefs and 3 mayors, a total of 45 years of public service to the residents of the city of Annapolis. At this time, a second moment of silence in her honor. Thank you. Again, this past weekend, we had a showcase of the #1 reason why City Dock has become an urgent concern, the flooding. Floodwaters lapped at the doors of downtown businesses at least twice during high tides in this storm event. Tropical Storm Ophelia did not do much damage by way of winds or power outages, but she did a number on flooding in low-lying areas. Compromise Street was closed to traffic for nearly the entire weekend, snarling traffic on both sides of the Spar Creek Eastport Bridge. Last Wednesday, we held a meeting with the City Dock Action Committee to review the most recent plans for future resiliency work at City Dock. We continue to work with our partners to make adjustments and updates. We want to thank everyone for their input and energy as we move this project forward, especially members of the City Dock Action Committee, elected officials, Historic Annapolis, the United States Naval Academy, and Department of Defense Naval Installation, as well as concerned residents and businesses. We truly value your input. We want to specifically give a shout out to our state and federal partners who have pledged funding, specifically Senator Sarah Elvereth, as well as Delegates Shanika Henson and Dana Jones. Thank you to our state delegation for your work to help us bring in $15 million in state funding so far. The weekend flooding also had an impact on an annual festival that was unfortunately canceled due to the weather. We are pleased to report to you tonight that the Kunta Kinte Festival has been rescheduled for October 28th at the same location. Make your plans today to attend this amazing and historically significant event. Trolley. It will run on Saturdays and Sundays. It's free and you can just flag it down anywhere along the route. This pilot will run, weather permitting, until June 30th of next year, when we will evaluate the results of the pilot. If you want to keep the trolley, please make sure you use it. The Department of Planning and Zoning received a $250,000 grant for the Bay Ridge Bikeways path that will run from downtown to Quiet Waters along Bay Ridge Avenue. This is a design grant and follows a very successful feasibility study, also grant funded, to make sure that the component pieces of the bikeway will be safe and accessible. We will continue our work to connect city bike paths and pedestrian greenways to align with the 2011 Bicycle Master Plan. This brings the total in bikeways grants to nearly $6 million. We're in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month, which runs from September 15th to October 15th each year. We would like to draw your attention to a couple of events that highlight the contributions of our Hispanic and Latino friends and neighbors. First is the Latino Art Gallery right here in City Hall on the first floor. Make sure that you take some time to walk through and admire some of the work of the talented artists in our community. It is open during regular business hours here at City Hall, 160 Duke of Gloucester Street. Feel free to look at it before you leave this evening. On Main Street, we have the flags of Hispanic countries, and we will again have the Day of the Dead Festival at Maryland Hall from 3 to 8 p.m. on Saturday, October 28th. We thank our Hispanic and Latino friends and neighbors for their contributions to our community and our culture. On the weekend of October the 6th through 8th, come out for Faith in Blue, an opportunity for police and clergy and communities to come together to facilitate safer and stronger communities. On Friday, First Baptist Church at 7 p.m. On Saturday at 12 noon, a citywide moment of silence for those first responders whom we have lost. And on Sunday, a celebration from 12 noon to 5 p.m. at People's Park. It's all free and open to the public. We hope to see you there. A final few notes on dates. Tomorrow and Saturday are the last nights for dinner under the stars on West Street. On Thursday, we've got green drinks with Annapolis Green and an electric car show at Market House. Also on Thursday, Annapolis Maritime Museum launches their fall concert series with a show by Blue Suede Bop at their Edgewood Road campus. It's free, but donations are appreciated. They'll have food trucks for local food and drink. Bring a blanket or beach chair for seating. Lastly, coming up this weekend is the start of the Annapolis Symphony Orchestra's 62nd season. There are shows featuring music to remember, Masterworks 1 on both Friday and Saturday night. Tickets are available online or at the Maryland Hall box office. Thank you. Now let's get on with our meeting. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is a report by committees.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Thank you very much. I actually have two reports in the absence of my colleague. Finance Committee met on September 20th and recommended favorably supplemental appropriation SA 524, Planning and Zoning grant from the Maryland Historic Trust. Also favorable recommendations to O2323, which is the Alcoholic Beverage Code Technical Corrections. Recommended favorably O2423, which is the General Obligation Bonds. Also favorable recommendations for the annual fee schedule. For the arts establishment of a liquor license, that was R38. R51, recommended favorably as amended. Fines for violating Annapolis noise restriction and position classification and pay plan, R53, were all recommended favorably to the council. The next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October 4th, 10:30 a.m. in council chambers. Transportation Committee met on September 13th, had favorable recommendations for appointments and reappointments for Hugh Hayes, Vince Harriman, and Charles Brooks for the Transportation Board. Had a general discussion about Annapolis premium parking and had a presentation from premium parking local director and a department update from our director, Marcus Moore. We also had a presentation given to us on the Annapolis Ahead 2040 as it pertains to transportation, the bikeway standards, and we asked a bunch of questions about the Annapolis Ahead 2040 transportation approach. Our next Transportation Committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October 11th, 4 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Gay.
Thank you so much, Alderwomen. I've got reports by committee, but also as the chair of Housing and Human Welfare, just following up on what you said. The mayor needs to get the council together, and we have the votes. We need to put a state of emergency in place for the gun violence that's taking place in our community. I think for far too long, I've been in this office for 4 years, and every year we have a handful of murders, a handful of shootings, and we do the same thing. We do like 5 town halls, we do the listening sessions, we do a private closed session here, and nothing changes. We need to declare a state of emergency, because that's what it is. When you're walking out to your car to get groceries and you get shot in both of your legs, that is a state of emergency. When you have constituents who do not want to come out of their home, that is a state of emergency. When you have constituents standing around 5 officers in a stairwell while a woman is on the ground bleeding out, that is a state of emergency. And because the public does not get to see that, and because many of my colleagues on this dais do not share the same social concerns in their communities, it gets blown over every single time. And I have to get up here and play bad guy and say, oh, why are we not doing this? Why are we doing it? And then the cycle just keeps repeating itself. It is extremely tiring. It has caused significant depression, and it's upsetting. And so I would hope that you would pass that message along. You asked a very good question. Why is all of this happening? Well, when are we investing in our communities? In poor minority communities? You talked about the Eastport trolley. That's such a great idea. I called this week and asked, well, why isn't it coming to the hood? If you want to get people active and you want to make communities connect, why would we have an Eastport trolley that doesn't connect to Eastport Terrace and Eastport Harbor House? Why do we have a bike path that just got $275,000 that's going from downtown to Quiet Waters? I mean, those are the things. Make investments into our communities. The capital, the budget that we had this year, I thought was decent in regards to some of the capital improvement investments, sidewalks, repairs, bus shelters, all of that stuff, but we need real help. And if it's I don't know if that was you saying it or the mayor saying it, if funding is not gonna be a problem, then we should get really serious about it and either call a special meeting or get supplemental appropriations on the floor that we know are gonna go directly to those communities. Because it's not fair. It's really not, that I have constituents that are crying and calling me like, I never wanna go home again. I'm scared I'm gonna be shot in the head, or I'm scared my kid's gonna be shot in the head if they go outside. I sent you all that video. You all saw the woman bleeding out on the floor. Kids are standing there. You got officers there. People, who would want that? I don't think you would want it in Ward 2. I know you don't want it in Ward 4. I know you don't want it in 5. I know you don't want it in 7. I know you don't want it in 8. And I know you don't want it in 3. And so what I'm asking for is that my colleagues on the council support the issues that I've been raising for the last 4 years. We need investment. Declare a state of emergency. Get the governor here. Get the state here. You said they gave $12.5 million to City Dock. We'll take $1 million of that for social advancement in our communities. I think that needs to be the focus, and that will hopefully help us out. Our next meeting of the Housing and Human Welfare will be, I don't even know where my sheet is. The next meeting of the Housing and Human Welfare will be in October, the third Monday in October. We'll pick right back. We had appointments at our last meeting. We'll pick right back up on the issues at Newtown 20. They just had mold and ceilings caving in. I've reached out to the property managers. They'll be in attendance, hopefully. And then also I'll throw something on the agenda to discuss the crime incidents and see what we can do with OCS. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tomorrow's Environmental Matters Committee meeting has been canceled because due to a number of scheduling conflicts. The next meeting will be October 12th, and that's a Thursday at I think 3 p.m. And we'll be talking about the comprehensive plan, focusing on some of the recommended actions in the environmental sections, and discussing the tree canopy goal with planning and zoning staff, as well as getting into some of the legislation that's been referred to the committee. We're going to have a packed agenda. We'll also be getting a report from Public Works on the sewage spill that we had a few weeks back, and a development update from planning and zoning. There may be more by that point that we're going to be discussing, but that's it for now.
Thank you.
It's on October 12th.
Alderman Shandon Meyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Economic Matters will be having a new meeting date and time for the month of October. We will be meeting Tuesday, October 3rd at 6 p.m. We will not be meeting on Wednesday, October 18th. The new meeting is Tuesday, October 3rd. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Not permanent.
Alderwoman Finlayson.
Thank you. The Rules and City Government Committee will be meeting on Friday, October 6th, here in Council Chambers. All are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. The Public Safety Standing Committee met on July the 19th. We took up legislation 01923, property tax credits for 911 specialists and public safety officers with a favorable recommendation. ID 3623 included general discussion from the Annapolis Police Department update, Chief Jackson Professional Standards Manager McCoy, Captain Commander of Community Outreach Maguez, Acting Captain David Maguez, Captain Kleindes, Captain Howard, and Public Information Officer Bennett were present to answer questions from the committee. Next Public Safety Committee is scheduled for Monday, October the 2nd at 4 p.m. here in Council Chambers. We will also have the Cure Violence Program presentation from the Anne Arundel County Department of Health. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is comments by the general public.
Okay. During this time, comments from the general public. The public may not speak on any item scheduled for a public hearing this evening. Public hearings scheduled for this evening are 02523, exception to allow public kayak pilot program, 02823, city noise prohibitions and enforcement, 03223, short-term rental licenses and regulations, When providing testimony, you will only be allowed 3 minutes to speak. Invite speakers listed on the sign-up sheet will come forward, and I will provide your name and address for the record. I have a list here. And the first name on the list is Gerard Ferry. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Farrar? Okay, please come forward.
Good evening, everybody. I've been
Is your microphone on, sir? And please give us your name and address, please.
Gerard Ferry, 96 Solopana Road, Annapolis, Maryland, 21403. Thank you.
Yes, sir, you may proceed.
I'd like to thank the council and for giving me a few minutes here. I left some copies of this. It speaks for itself. This is the 4th year. The Drug Free All-Star Festival is going to be at Pitt Moyer. I started Drug Free All-Stars 30 years ago here in 1990 in Annapolis, went off to California and Texas and Florida, took it with me, have reached millions of people and donated all of the foundation to Annapolis, the gentleman who runs it now. And I help out with these events. And what we're doing is this year is the key to forwarding what we're trying to do is people on a Saturday get up in Annapolis to 20 events to pick and choose. The last thing they want to do is go to a drug education festival. Why? Well, most of them they just don't. So you need to get them there. So we have the softball game with the mayor. We have all these different events. Just like what I've learned and give lectures on, when people want to get people interested in drugs, they go to them, they entertain them, and then they introduce it to them. Well, we do the opposite. We give them something that'll entertain them, get them interested, and educate them, and hopefully we'll save a few people that need it with their families. So what we're asking is for each ward to get 20 attendees, and between 11 and 5, because it's strength in numbers. All these advertisers and sponsors, if they see the numbers, will give the money that can help what you're looking for. You know, we're looking for in the next year to do a ward month where we will go to a ward with a group, a celebrity, and so on, and actually bring it to the neighborhood, something like what you're doing with your educational stuff. So anyway, I just would like all of you, if you would please, you're more than happy, like Miss Tierney, for a couple of years, to set up a table and done face painting. If you'd like to have a ward table, contact me at the bottom. We'll set up a table and a couple of chairs and bring your tent and show people what your ward is doing. Because as you've said, each of your wards are different. They have different personalities, different needs. And the idea is to bring this together because this is important. All these things are great. All these interventions are great. But the thing that's destroying it, if somebody cannot handle life because of drug addiction, it's all for naught. So I thank you. I put these in your mailbox, and they're in front of you. A couple of family members. So how many can I count on for 20 for each of you? You got to get 20 people in 2 weeks to show up and get a free lunch. 11 to 5. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good evening.
You too.
I'll leave this here.
Mrs. Margaret Maluski.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Malevsky, and I own the property at 394 Jefferson Street. I would like to once again speak in support of Alderman Savage's resolution regarding the public water access at Wells Cove. Since this was introduced 2 weeks ago, we've created a Facebook group to raise awareness about the progress of this resolution and restoration of public access to the water at that location. We asked all our potential members to answer a couple of questions why they want to join the group. And consistently, the response we've gotten is, we live near the water and we want to be able to access the water taxi, to launch small craft, to enjoy safe and well-maintained water access in our neighborhood. The closest water access we have is on the other side of 6th Street. So it was remarkable how consistent these responses were and from what a wide sort of radius around the access they came. So I just wanted to reiterate our support and our request that this resolution be carefully considered because it really impacts the folks who live in the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Ed Hartman?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. My name is Ed Hartman. My address is 116 Defense Highway, Suite 300, Annapolis, Maryland. I am also speaking on Resolution R4323, which is flawed both procedurally and substantively. The procedural issue, and it's also certain to cause more litigation against the city and probably against individual members who are acting outside of their authority as well. Because I know that the city attorney and the city staff has recommended against it. So this is an action outside the authority of the city, both legally and practically. But this is not a resolution. I know you are calling it a resolution, but a resolution is defined under Maryland law and United States law as an expression of an opinion, an informal matter, something of a temporary character, while an ordinance prescribes a permanent rule of conduct or a matter of law. This is an ordinance. Calling it a resolution does not change that. Therefore, you have not followed the proper procedures. It requires a public hearing, requires 3 readers, and so this will be legally invalid if passed. And again, will generate more litigation. The additional problems with this is that it exceeds the scope of the order that has been entered in this litigation. Now, of course, the most important part is that the litigation is in the appeals process. So imagine if the case is overturned, which is a possibility. It's not a certainty. I've never felt any case is certain of winning one way or the other. But if it is, and you have meddled in actual real property rights, the city will be liable for damages for doing that, because you will have once again exceeded its authority and acted improperly, because this is a legislative body, not a judicial body. You're not allowed to interpret on property rights, and most importantly, you're not allowed to impair property rights, which is what this would do, because it intends to cause the city employees to actually affect property rights by addressing their boats, their property rights. I have 3 particular exhibits that are here before you today. One is a tax map which was presented and approved by the port wardens just last year, identifying the developable waterway areas of 4 property owners right in front of where this property is. The port wardens have spoken. There have been no appeals taken, and you cannot do what's called a collateral attack on a proper judgment of an administrative agency. You're not allowed to simply randomly void property rights, especially when they've been confirmed by a city agency, to which if you oppose it, you must appeal within 30 days. That did not happen. In fact, the plaintiffs in the Blue Heron case did appear at that port warden's hearing, opposed it, lost, and did not appeal. They can't go around that. These are property rights established as a matter of law, and you also have in your packet 3 deeds, which identify the area in front of the Blue Heron easement. And in that sense, they are property rights that have been deeded to these people over 30 years ago and must be protected and respected. Also, and taking the property rights away from them is a violation of the Maryland and federal constitutions, both due process, both substantive and procedural, and violates the oath that each one of you took when you took this office. There are multiple legal issues that are still out there and that you need to consider, and I don't believe anyone here is qualified to overrule the Supreme Court of Maryland and the Appellate Court of Maryland before they have even decided what those are. There are issues of standing. There are riparian rights. By the way, there are 6 separate and distinct riparian rights in the state of Maryland. Which one do you claim that the city has somehow licensed to the public? Because it hasn't been identified by the judge or by anyone here. So what is the process by which that? And then this board will go on further to instruct somehow employees of the city to impair my property rights. Again, I just want to note my objection that because this is actually an ordinance, I should be entitled to present witnesses and testimony for an unlimited period of time.
Excuse me, Mr. Hartman, we've given you 4 minutes.
I'll go sit down.
Could you wrap up, please?
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
My co-counsel, Mr. Sterrett, will take up for me. If you wouldn't mind calling him next to sort of keep.
I have to go by this written document here.
Okay, very well. Whenever you call him, he'll be ready to.
Thank you. Ms. Christy Unruh, and I'm sorry if I pronounced the name incorrectly.
No, you did a good job.
Oh, thank you.
I live at 1001 Monroe Street in Annapolis, Maryland, 21403. Thanks for the opportunity to come and speak with you. I am also here to talk about Resolution 4323, which supports the public access to Wells Cove. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Seems to me, I guess I'm very unclear with the fact that how the city council can make a decision regarding this situation that's already been clarified by a judge's order. For me, I also look at this opportunity as a moment to view and build confidence in city citizens in Annapolis to understand that the city is going to protect their rights and that the city is willing to do the work as needed. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. C.W. Yarrow.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for having us. I'm here regarding the resolution as well, R4323. Just real quickly, I'm sure you're all well aware of this, but maybe the audience isn't. This is for 40 years, we have, when the council actually called the Wells Cove public water access for the public. Then in 1992, the public water access easement was ruled to stand. In 2023, Circuit Court Judge Morris ruled the public has an unambiguous public water access at Wells Cove. So I'm confused as to why a judge's order doesn't stand, and there has been no action taken for us to be able to access the water there at Wells Cove. But aside from that, the last couple of days we've distributed hundreds of flyers to our local residents about the Wells Cove public water access, and it's informative. It tells people the history of Wells Cove, and also that that they can be using that water if we are able to settle this, whatever we want to call it, a dispute or a delay. So during the conversations that I had with some of the public, they were totally amazed that this public water access even exists, because several of them said, well, there's no sign. We don't know. How do you get there? Where is it? So I'm just bringing their voices to the council tonight to say that we would like to be able to use our public water access. Thank you very much.
Ms. Yarrow, could you please give us your address?
I'm sorry?
Your address. We need to have your address on the
my
record.
address. I'm
Yes,
so
ma'am.
sorry.
That's okay.
I'm at 102 Roosevelt Court, Eastport 21403.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Ms. Wendy Hallett.
Good evening, Wendy Hallett. I live on Chesapeake Avenue on Eastport on the peninsula. And I thank all of you.
Your address, full address, ma'am, please.
311.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I thank all of you for your time as alder people, as working for the city. I know that you guys put in tons of time and effort, including evenings, and I just want you to know it is greatly appreciated. What I wanted to speak to tonight was a couple different things, but all related to Eastport parking. Big shock. First thing, just the trolley. I'm super grateful that you guys have come up with this idea of the trolley. In what I've been able to read and get my hands on, for those of you on the Transportation Committee, it seems like the trolley is there to help with the parking scenario with the crowding in Eastport. maybe so people can park in the shopping center and take the trolley into where the restaurants and so forth are. The hours of the trolley are Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 6. That is not the time when we have trouble with the parking in Eastport. The parking in Eastport, the trouble times are Wednesday evenings, Thursday evenings, Friday evenings, and Saturday evenings. That is when we need some out-of-area parking and people to be able to get in and out, if in fact that is the purpose of the trolley. To that degree, when people are parking in Eastport, and I know right now they're doing tons of construction and it does not make sense to mark the roads currently, but when they do the repaving of Eastport, if I might suggest my beautiful handwriting and drawing here, sorry, not an artist, if you could put tiny little individual T markers for each spot, I think this in and of itself would give us like 10 to 15% more parking, pulling that figure out of my head. But the point is, like in front of my house, there's an area like this. There are almost always 2 cars there when it's really meant for 3. People are not aware, and I would use the word considerate when it comes to parking in Eastport. It's super crowded. It would just, if we could designate the spaces, I think in and of itself, and I don't know how much paint costs, but it doesn't seem like it would be a super expensive thing to fix. Lastly, the parking in lieu of for restaurants that have parking lots and now they want to use them to do outdoor seating, so now you have more people and even less parking, kind of confounds the whole parking thing. We're wondering if it's possible to have the restaurants who have parking, and I'll use the one at the corner, I don't know, can I say the name of them? Like Boatyard Bar and Grill, for example, has off-street parking. If their employees who come in at 4 or 4:30 and don't leave until 10 or 11 could park in that lot, then other people can come and go for the 2 or 2.5 hours that they're dining in the restaurants. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night.
Oh, Alderman Arnett.
Thank you. Miss
Hallett.
Yes, sir.
So I appreciate your suggestions about the timing. I want everyone to know, at least from my perspective, this is a beta test. I raised the same points about the times. Doing more days costs more money, so we'll have to find that money. But if you could submit your testimony in email to me or to the council, that would be very helpful. The Director of Transportation, I think, is a very good director, and we can work with him to sort of sort it out as we do this beta testing. But
Thank you. I just think if you're going to, and this is coming from a science person, if you're going to beta test, the conditions should be that reflect either where the problem is or where you think the solution's going. So to beta test hours where the problem doesn't exist, you may not get the ridership, then we may not have the trolley, and the evening problem still exists. But yes, I'm happy
That's why I liked your comments, and that would be very helpful to help me working with the director.
I will email you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Christopher Starrett.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Sterrett. I'm a resident of 1018 Boucher Avenue in Eastport. I'm a member of the owner of the one of the owners of the units in BHCCA condominium. I'm also an attorney, a practicing attorney in Washington, D.C. for the last 40 years, in which I dealt as a counsel for appellate judges and dealt with issues dealing with the Constitution and codes. Federal codes primarily. My concern here today is with process. No exception for a city council resolutions is stated in the City Charter of Annapolis, Article 4, Section 2A. As I noted in an earlier address to this distinguished board, this charter provision broadly prohibits the aldermen or alderwomen from directing the work of a director or employee of a city department. The new amended resolution by Councilman Savage has changed the original resolution to go from directing the city manager to direct the harbor master to immediately take removal action in the waters of Well Cove, and it now addresses that version of the resolution to the city, quote unquote, and adds additional demands with respect to what it expects the city to do. In view of the expansive scope of the charter provision, which I've read previously and it's available to everyone, this circuitous and even more burdensome resolution proffered by its supporters clearly violates, in my view, the above charter provision. What's the damage from this? People might ask, councilmen might ask. Proposed resolution should not be further voted on until the mayor is present and participates in the city council proceeding. He is the chief elected officer of the city, responsible for the actions of subordinates, which includes the city manager and the harbor master and all the other employees of the city. When an alderman or alderwoman decides to intervene in the work of city officials, the mayor's lawful authority, as well as that of city administrators and employees, is diminished, and government disorder prevails. My third point is that the proposed resolution should not be allowed to proceed to a vote without a detailed legal response from the sponsors on its impracticality. That's a phrase used by the staff opinion and the city attorney, and they opined in the resolution. However, if I could just continue with this last one. The problem I see is when unnamed city officials are confronted with the city's proposed resolution, city council's proposed resolution, and then on the other hand, the staff and the attorney's conclusion to the contrary. That's an untenable position for a city employee to be placed in, and shows the wisdom of the charter provision that I earlier cited. My final point is that this case is before the Court of Maryland, Appellate Court of Maryland, as pointed out by Mr. Hartman. The numerous substantial legal issue raised in that appeal call for the judgment of legal professionals versed in these areas of law. There has been no showing in this resolution that who is to make these who in the city is expected to make these legal decisions and whether they are legally authorized and qualified to make a reasonable decision in this dispute. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Jessica Packler, please.
Pardon?
And I was calling the next person up to speak. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jessica Packler, and I live at 506 President Street. I was planning to come tonight to talk just about Wells Cove and the resolution, but instead, in addition to that, I'm going to talk about city protecting the rights of the public as a whole. Regardless of what, first with the resolution, obviously I support the resolution. Regardless of what happens with the resolution, though, the thing to note is that there is a real and valid, signed and executed, and recently confirmed by Judge Morris easement that was signed by Blue Heron Cove developers and the city of Annapolis in 1992. That easement, the city should be enforcing. Regardless of what happens tonight, one of the city's jobs, also as enumerated in the charter, is to protect the public and city property rights and privileges from waste or encroachment. The easement is dedicated to the public, and it's the city's right to enforce that easement. It was signed in 1992, and there has never been anything to take that easement away. The only option that goes past that is that the city can request the deed of title to the property. That is what the easement says. It's also important to remember that the 1992 easement not only grants the public the right of access to the waters of Wells Cove, it is also the document that grants the city the right to maintain the storm drain and the utilities, which it has been doing for over 30 years, and as a public entity allows the city to be present. The city has enforced, in some form, the public water access for the last 30 years. It is only in the last 3 years that the law office and the city have decided that they no longer want to enforce the public access to the water at Wells Cove. So I just wanted to say that about Wells Cove. This is public access. I understand that there are maybe some people who bought their homes not realizing that that's public access, but it's public access. All of their deeds say that they must heed to the easements and other things that were on the plats that were created before they bought their house. That's what it is. It's an easement. And more importantly, the judge, the defendants asked for the judge to put a stay on the order so that the water access could not be executed, could not be enforced, and the judge denied that stay. The judge said, no, this is public water access. The public should be able to access the water. On to the next part of protecting the rights of the public. I agree with Dewan. As all of you know, I live on President Street, and I have lived there for a very long time. And I can't remember in a long time the violence being as bad as it is. My children are now afraid to go out and walk my dog. The other night, my child was walking the dog, and he was walking the dog. It was Sunday night. Nobody had school the next day, so everybody was, staying up late, and this is what our family and our neighborhood heard. That's from a block away. Imagine what it sounded like for the children, for the many, many children, the 100 of residents who live right there in the 5 buildings that surround that area. The city has to do something. What is happening now, whatever's being done, is not working, and something has to be done immediately. I was here for the shots fired during Ellen Moyers. I never thought I'd be back here again for the same thing. Please do something. We don't deserve to lose another child. We don't deserve to have another injury. We don't deserve this. We are all residents of the city of Annapolis, and we deserve the same respect in our neighborhood and in other low-income neighborhoods around the city as every other neighborhood in the city of Annapolis.
Thank you, Ms. Packler. If there's anyone else present who would like to speak, please come forward at this time.
Yes, hi, Acting Mayor, thank you. Other aldermen here and staff, I'm grateful to be here. My name's Arthur Holt. I live at 8 Fisk Circle, Annapolis, Maryland. And I'm here also representing my wife, Chrissy Holt. This is regarding Medicare for All. And the city, I think last year, passed a resolution saying that the city is actually in favor of everybody having health care and would do what the city can to help influence a national Medicare for All system for all people, all residents of the United States. The county is now considering a similar resolution. That's coming up for vote on this coming Monday. And if you'd like to submit testimony, you can online until 5 p.m. on Monday. But please, come and testify in person. If you come by 6:30 on Monday to the Arundel Center, you can sign up to testify. Bring healthcare stories. Bring your medical bills. Bring people that you know who don't have health care and need a procedure but can't afford to get it. So please, I really invite everybody to do that. And with that, I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Hello, my name's Ryan Franey, 133 South Homeland. I want to do a correction from last meeting. I said the Lighthouse Shelter. I meant the Lighthouse Liquor Store where the rape happened, just to clarify that. I've got 6 family members that live in this city. 2 nephews, my parents. They need police, plain and simple. My story is I was treated like a bait dog downtown on a Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. The security staff treated me like a bait dog. They thought it was a big joke to have a 50-year-old and a 25-year-old fight. They tried to set it up. When I called the police after I was attacked, they spun it. The people that attacked me, they lied. Criminals lie. The police officer I looked up, he spent 18 years in Baltimore, was suspended. Because he was suspended in 2019, there's no way to find out about why he was suspended. Now he's working here. I've heard that 80% of the current police force is former Baltimore City police officers. That department has had some issues. Look up We Own the City, about just how that whole miniseries came from that. The Wire. Baltimore's had a lot of issues. So when the chief got up here and misspoke and said Baltimore instead of Annapolis, okay. So my story, to finish up, I was treated like a bait dog. With the help of a police officer and this bar and the staff, they painted me as a criminal. They did a very good job of it. I caught them, okay? As of July 18th of this year, my case has been reopened as a felony because I did not back down, okay? I'm a 51-year-old white dude. I fear your police department. So what do you think that someone who is, you know, I live in a nice neighborhood. I got great neighbors. I've got a place in the county, you know? So it's like something where there's a crime problem in some neighborhoods that are deadly. It's deadly. In your ward, there is organized criminal activity. When someone comes in and steals 80-some tires from a dealership next to the Goodwill, and I spoke to a business next door, and he was like, yeah, they had lookouts. They came in, boom, they had one thing to jack up the cars, then they would put old tires in. They were quick. It's coming from Baltimore, DC, Philly. This is people that know this is a soft target. The police, you know, the chief, I made I quoted him last time. He was supposed to call me 2 weeks before. He never did. I gave him an opportunity to get what I was going to tell him, and he never responded. So I'm going to wrap up, but that's where your whole plan and all the programs that you just ran through isn't helping right now. There's no way. Because Baltimore, DC, the crime's up, they come down here. Because it's like, you know what? Criminals, there's a pecking order. There's the, top ones and there's the small ones. They're going to go to a city that's easier and then bolt back out. So thank you for your time. And another thing is that the county, when you go up to speak, you only get 2 minutes, but you speak in the center. So right now, I'm facing this way. I should be facing the person in charge. Secondly, when the YouTube guy came in here and the mayor had to have the police officer, get him out of here, an older woman walked right by here. If he was nuts, he could, just like that. If someone's standing there, it's better safety-wise, public speaking-wise, because this just makes no sense. So, I've got lots of suggestions. Have a nice night. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Seeing no motion in the chambers, I declare comments by the general public closed. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar include
Yes, sir.
AP 2423, the appointment of Hugh Hayes to the Transportation Board. AP 2523, the reappointment of Vince Harriman to the Transportation Board. AP 2623, the reappointment of Charles Brooks to the Transportation Board. AP 2723, the reappointment of Ida Mae Sims to the Human Relations Commission. AP 2823, the reappointment of Charles Hurley to the Human Relations Commission. And AP 2923, the reappointment of Michael J. Keller to the Human Relations Commission.
And you have one more supplemental.
As well as supplemental appropriations under $50,000. There's only one, being SA 524, a grant, planning and zoning, the Maryland Historical Trust. That is the end of the consent calendar.
Is there any objections to the consent calendar? I would entertain therefore a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Acting Mayor Kendall Charles.
Aye.
Alderman Gay.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Aye. Alderman Finlayson.
Aye.
Alderman Shadow Meyer.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
Who did the invocation?
The next item on the agenda is a public hearing beginning with ordinance O2523, exception to allow public kayak rack pilot program.
So moved. Oh, it's public hearing.
We're inviting speakers listed on the sign-up sheet to come forward and provide your name and address for the record. Mary Bannon.
Hi, good evening. Mary Bannon, 182 Prince George Street, Annapolis 21401. And sorry, Alderwoman Tierney is not here because she has been the one that we've been working on this with, but I would just like to speak in favor of this. This program was brought up about a year ago in August of 22 with lots of support of the downtown residents. We have water everywhere downtown, but we can't actually get on any of it because of the Naval Academy and St. John's, and so we see it, but we would like to be able to actually use the end of our street, Prince George Street, as a little city park, to have a pilot program where people could bring their kayaks or their stand-up paddleboards. There would be very little cost to the city to do so. My husband and I have already taken ownership of that park where we plant flowers and we keep them watered, and we try to keep that as a nice place for residents to go and sit. Lots of the city parks, as you know, have little beautification programs, and that park is sort of like the poor orphan that does not seem to get any attention, so we weed and take care of it. And if you've ever tried to carry a kayak or a paddleboard down the streets of downtown Annapolis with the sidewalks and the tree roots and the traffic and the dogs and the strollers, it's very difficult. I've tried it and I said, this is going to kill me. By the time you get on the water, you're exhausted. So we would just like to have a place where residents could keep kayaks or paddleboards, and I have volunteered to be the community resident volunteer that would take care of it. We've talked about having some kind of a lottery system to see, you know, how we would allocate them, because I have a list of names of people that are very interested, and we would have a plan to remove them every November 1st, so this would not become a hazard or a litter situation. And anyway, I just want to say, I hope you all will consider it, because living downtown is wonderful, but we really don't have a way to use the water. And with the new city dock plan, I'm very concerned that we not lose the little park that we have, which really is our only slightly quiet place left that's not filled with day trippers and people who are coming and putting their little boats there on our dock. So I hope
Thank you.
all
Ms.
will support
Bannock,
it.
of course, continue to work with your Ward 1 Alderwoman Tierney.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else present who would like to speak? Please come forward at this time.
Good evening. My name is Craig Harrison, 264 King George Street.
I'm also the president of the Ward 1 Residents Association, and I'm not speaking for the association, I'm speaking for myself and a number of the other board members that I've spoken with about this. And we're totally in support of what Mary just brought up. We think it would be just a great asset for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jessica Packler, 506 President Street. Public water access is important. Providing nearby, local, close public water access is important in every part of the city where we can do that. Please support this.
Thank you, Ms. Packler. Anyone else? I declare the public hearing on 02523 closed. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is Ordinance 02823, City Noise Prohibitions and Enforcement.
At this time, I ask speakers on the sign-up sheet to come forward and provide your name and address for the record. I have Mr. George Butler.
Hi, my name is George Butler. I live in 217 Bloomsbury Square, Annapolis, Maryland. I'm up here to let you know that I have a text from my boss saying that we've been approved to get a raise from the county, to match with the county. And I'm hearing tonight that it did not pass. I'm speaking of all our crossing guard. We are here saving kids' lives, people's lives. Why we can't get our raise that we deserve? If we all somebody passed it, what's going on here? It's not fair that Anne Arundel got a raise and we still at the same one that we not getting with Anne Arundel.
This is just a public hearing, Mr. Butler. I don't know what avenues you have tried to get the raise, who you've spoken with.
Well, we got a text from our boss saying that we got approved with the county and we'll be matching with the county. Now, I don't know who sent it to our boss, and our boss sent it to us saying that we supposed to be getting a raise. Now I'm hearing that we're not gonna get it. And I got the text right here in my phone saying that we supposed to be getting that raise.
Why don't you check with the administrative officer at the police department? I guess that's who oversees everything, or your direct supervisor. Alderman Finlayson.
Yes, I'd like to ask our city finance director what the status is. You know, this was a subject of our, when we were in the budget process. We voted it down. I thought we had agreed that whatever the county, we did not support that.
Well, I got the text right here saying that it had been approved. So somebody got to be lying.
Madam Chair.
I have a question on the floor for the finance director.
I'm going to have to look into what we did for the crossing guards. I know we talked about it, but I don't know what we ended up with at the end of it.
Okay, I just would like clarification, so
I was just confused because I thought this is the hearing for the noise.
It is, he signed up on it.
It's not, but
Oh, okay, I was trying to follow what was being talked about.
That's fine.
So this is, so I can try to find out, but I don't know if I'll be able to answer it immediately.
Mr. Butler, who's your boss?
Thomas.
Who is
Officer
that?
Thomas.
Yeah, Officer Thomas.
In the police department?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Butler, let me know what Officer Thomas has said to you. Anyone else? I see none. Oh, Mr. Ledoux.
Chris Ledoux, 215 Severn Avenue. I just want to say, I see Mr. Butler all the time when I pass by. He does a remarkable job. He protects the children. And I just want to say, Mr. Butler, thank you for what you do for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ledoux. Anyone else? Nothing is fine. We have to make adjustments at times. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda? Oh, excuse me. Thank you, Alderman Arnett. I declare the public hearing closed on 02823. Thank you so much. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is Ordinance 03223, short-term rental licenses and regulations.
Invite speakers up to sign up on the sign-up sheet to come forward and provide your name and address for the record. We'll start with Mr. David Wegmer. Please let me know if I pronounced that incorrectly.
Hi, everybody. David Weimer,
I'm sorry.
W-E-Y-M-E-R.
Thank you.
15 Franklin Street. Thank you for having me tonight. I wanted to applaud the City Council for taking a small step in the right direction of correcting the short-term rental law. And I think it's following a national trend around the country that many jurisdictions have employed over the last few years as they've seen the damage that short-term rentals do to neighborhoods. So the interesting thing about the short-term rental code as enacted is it allows a commercial use, which is overnight stays, in residential districts. I happen to live in an R1 district, which is single-family zoning with ancillary uses. And I have a house down the street where people advertise that they can have 14 guests a night in that house, with all the parking and the noise and the other issues that come with that. So what's happened around the country is many jurisdictions have begun to impose different sets of regulations on short-term rentals. Now, this is a step in the right direction because you're trying to limit and protect licensure so that there aren't people who are defrauding the city by having multiple locations. But for example, New York City has just enacted legislation that you may be familiar with. 30 days minimum overnight stay with the host being present and all the rooms within the house being unlocked. Sarasota, Florida, 7-day minimum stay, no more than 10 guests per resident. Palm Springs, no more than 26 nights of usage a year. Crested Butte, Colorado, a limit, kind of a lottery type, almost like what you would have with liquor licenses based on neighborhoods. So you have a certain allocation of short-term rental licenses available per neighborhood. And I think the one that's most appropriate for Annapolis is Dallas, which, you know, most of us don't think of as probably the most progressive regulatory city. But Dallas has just enacted legislation that prohibits short-term rentals in residential zones. So short-term rentals can be maintained and used in commercial zones. And I think that, again, this step that you're taking, if this in fact passes, is a positive step. But I would encourage the city to return the neighborhoods to the neighbors, make residential neighborhoods residential again, and pass further legislation, any of those that I mentioned, and there are probably other ones as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tim Tower.
Thank you. My name is Tim Tower. I live at 8 Taney Avenue, Annapolis. And I'm here to speak on 03223 regarding short-term rentals. I would encourage you not to tweak the short-term rental licenses and regulations. I would ask you to change them substantially to support basically what Mr. Weimer just mentioned there. We need to get a hold of this, especially when they're in residential neighborhoods, as he mentioned there. We have one near us. The manual instructed the residents or the renters to not follow code. It says, take your trash out when you check out. Well, our trash gets picked up and recycling on a Monday. They check out at noon on a Tuesday. It sits six days at the curb, okay? We call the local manager because the owner lives, you know, over in Virginia, and not very cooperative, upset doesn't like to have to run back and do that. Now, when he comes by the night before to put it out, he comes at 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because he has so many properties that he has to get to put it out, that he puts it out there to let it stink and smell and get pulled around by raccoons and what have you, prior to the code, which says 6 p.m. They shouldn't be allowed to put their stuff out at noon or 2 p.m. when the code is you can't put it out until after 6. And we have called a half a dozen times. It's occurred more than that. But that needs to be enforced. And regarding enforcement, the code says that there's 3 things that you can enforce on: nuisance, fraud, and misrepresentation. Well, when they take up all the parking spots on the street, which, by the way, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, where the parking problem was identified in Eastport earlier, that's when the short-term rentals are occupied. So they contribute to the problem that was being referenced there. They misrepresent, saying that you can park more cars off-street than they really have capacity to do. They list their sleeping capacity as much more. Sleeping capacity should at least be limited to whatever the law says that a real estate advertisement can say. There's strict things on what you can say, how many bedrooms there are in a real estate listing. You know, if it's a converted closet that doesn't have a window or an egress or whatever, you got to go through a room to get to it. You can't call that a bedroom. It should be whatever the number of bedrooms are legally allowed in real estate times 2. So if there's 4 bedrooms, 8 should be the capacity. Where we have one near us with 14 as the capacity, it just invites bachelorette parties every other weekend. A couple weekends ago, I had to go out there when one of the drunks came home early, fell down their stairs, had a concussion, had to call the 911 ambulance, and I had to stay there and wait with the renter. And this goes on all the time when they have those high-capacity short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods. So please, don't tweak it, fix it, change it. It needs to be transformed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I just have a quick question.
Yes, Alderman Gay.
What neighborhood was this? I'm sorry.
Mr. Tower? Mr. Tower?
What community is this in?
This is Ward 1.
Oh, okay.
Not the downtown Ward 1, but the Zone 3 parking area.
Thank you. Eric Hernandez? Is that E-R-K-I-N?
Yeah, you got it right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Elkin Hernandez. I live in 19 Bristol Drive in the city of Annapolis. I'm here tonight to express my concerns in relation to the existing STR regulations. There are 2 main issues I want to point tonight. First, regarding the permit suspension revocation. We can agree that the existing regulations are too weak to be an effective tool to manage the nuisance and safety compliance that STRs are generating. The proposed update does, for the most part, a good job to address it, but in my opinion, the definition of nuisance needs improvement. 3 or more calls per 90 days is, in my view, equivalent to say that I can call the police 8 times in a year, as long as it's not more than 2 times every 3 months, and the operator will keep the license. In my view, that's unacceptable. We shouldn't be calling the police 8 times in a year. The way I see it in my street, no one had to call the police for over a decade, not even once, until the STRs came up. Now the bigger concern is that we're not requiring owner's principal residence as a requirement to get a license. Let's make it clear, without this, we will not have a sustainable situation. STR platforms are having a detrimental impact in the housing inventory as landlords are encouraged to move their properties out of the long-term rental and for sale markets into the short-term rental market. I have witnessed in Annapolis how houses that used to be occupied by working class families, nurses, teachers, and military families stations in the area, they come for the 2-3 year period. Those houses are now investor-operated STRs. And while the proposed update is correctly addressing the issue of the magic LLCs that are buying multiple units, we will continue to be impacted by the individual investors that take houses out of the long-term rental market. And the full-time STRs in my street are operated by individual out-of-state investors, not by LLCs. These individual investors will continue doing the same. The negative effects of this type of operations in the housing inventory of touristic jurisdictions like Annapolis are well documented by independent studies. This is not something debatable. It's well documented. And while this is not the only reason we have a shortage, a housing shortage, it is certainly a contributing factor, mostly more of a factor in touristic jurisdictions. So have no doubt that the amount of investor-operated STRs in our city will continue to grow unless effective policy is enacted. Other jurisdictions have recognized the problem and enacted. Many have gone beyond the principal residence requirement. Examples, Charlestown, South Carolina, Newport News, Virginia, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Washington, D.C., Montgomery, and PG County did it. Recently, Dallas joined, and New York City just shut down over 10,000 STRs. It is hard to have a credible discussion about workforce housing if we fail to address the impact of STRs in our housing inventory. Needless to say, events like Commission and Week and the like should be maintained and be accepted of licensing. We all support that, and we want to continue supporting it. I want to close with a thought. The way I see it, we have two choices here. One is to allow real estate investors and big tech multi-billion corporations to continue expanding the STR market in Annapolis at the expense of the housing inventory, or to protect the right to housing for the people that live here, want to be here, including workforce and military families stationed in the area, and require the owner's principal resident as one of the conditions to operate an STR in a residential neighborhood in our city. To give us time to get it right, I think that an immediate moratorium on new licenses is warranted. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. If there's anyone else, Mr. Art Holt? Mr. Art Holt, going once, going twice? I think he left. I think he's already testified. Anyone else here to testify at this time? Please come up.
Hello, I'm Susan Margulies. I live at 113 Conduit Street, and I will playfully call my testimony a tale of two cities. I start with Baltimore back in 2018, where they passed and debated their STR legislation. At that time, they grandfathered in all existing non-owner occupieds, they banned all future non-owner occupieds, and they made the owner-occupied, host-present STRs very easy. No home inspections and a nice registration-only format. So what happened over the subsequent 5 years? First, what started to happen is on the Airbnb posting boards, you saw people complaining, I can't get the rates that I used to get. The owner-occupied roommates for the weekend, host present, they're cheaper. I can't offer my Airbnb for the same amount of money as I used to. And then all of a sudden you started to see, I'm liquidating my Airbnb. Do you want my furniture? Come get my couch. Come get my table. The former leader of the Baltimore Host Coalition had 11 STRs, and organically over time, she transitioned all 11 STRs to long-term housing. No lawsuits were ever filed. No future legislation was ever passed. They got it right in 2018, and basically Baltimore is living happily ever after. We passed our legislation in 2019 over extensive, outraged, month after month after month objection. And my primary objection was the treatment of the owner-occupied community. A home inspection of a private home, a useless Maryland state sales and use tax ID when Airbnb collects and remits the taxes automatically, and you can only do host-present roommate shares on Airbnb. These are two significant restrictions that drove the owner-occupied community off the platform. And at the same time, all over the United States of America, cities banned the non-owner occupieds. And thus investors as they scanned across the whole world. Where can I buy an STR? Not in Florence, not in New York, not in Portland, Oregon. But wait, Annapolis still lets us do it. And so all over the US, attention got focused on Annapolis over the past 5 years with laser focus. Everyone can buy one. You can buy one. You can buy one. The joke over in the historic district is that Alderman Arnett drafted the legislation so that Eastport could own the historic district. So if you want to fix your problem, you have to be friendly to the owner-occupied community. Those of you who sit on the board know exactly what you need to do. We spent 8 months telling you, this legislation is fine, pass it if you like. It's just a drop on the surface. I remind you that we're up to 3 resolutions on this topic. 1 failed, 1 adopted, 1 withdrawn. 2 pieces of legislation, 1 failed, 1 technical correction. Plus, we almost derailed the ADU bill over short-term legislation. This is bill number 7, trying to correct our problem. And you'll see me again. We'll be back because this won't do a thing, but we appreciate you trying. And I'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Chris Ledoux, 215 Severn Avenue. I live in Eastport. I also provide long-term rental apartments downtown, and I have 1 STR, and I'm a host. I don't disagree with a lot of our neighbors. It's been 7 years since we passed the STR code, and it's totally appropriate. And I thank the sponsors for trying to put in more protections for our neighborhoods and to go after the bad actors. I don't like the bad actors either. I live here. I'm not trying to wreck my block. I'm not trying to wreck Annapolis. It's totally appropriate that we have hosts that are maybe operating outside the rules or having, big parties and disrupting our neighborhoods. And so I generally support this ordinance and what it's trying to do, because the intent is to try to tighten up some of those rules to go after the bad actors by still allowing responsible operators who care about this community to still, provide accommodations to visitors to our city, whose economy outside of the Naval Academy and the government and the hospital is tourism, right? So, and I would also note that it seems lately with a lot of the hearings that people are against inns and they're against micro hotels and they're against STRs. So as you move into the comp plan, pick one, right? The people have to go somewhere because this creates jobs in our community at the restaurants, the bars, and the water services, et cetera. You know me. I've had conversation with the lead sponsor. I think there are some technical amendments to clarify some ambiguity, define some terms like neighborhood that aren't defined. Is that the block, 2 blocks, et cetera? So I look forward to working with all of you at the committees with some of these very technical type of things. We don't need to get in the weeds tonight, that will improve the bill, strengthen the bill, and actually I've even suggested a couple other loopholes that could be closed. So I thank the sponsors, I thank all of you for listening, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Hello. Wendy Hallett, 311 Chesapeake. Did not intend to speak tonight, but feel so moved. Also agree with many of the things that are being said tonight. I think I spoke at our one of our alderman meetings where there was a resident who has an Airbnb next to them. They're owned by a corporation in Delaware. The rates are super low. Therefore, the people that they're attracting are not spending a lot of money. They're not really abiding by the rules. The police are being called. To Mr. Ledoux's point, there are many people that have Airbnbs that I feel like follow the rules and follow them very carefully. Without getting into my whole personal story, I was living overseas. I bought a house here in Annapolis because my 94-year-old father-in-law lives here, my sister lives here, my kids were at the Naval Academy. We were supposed to come back. I had a health issue and got stuck in Europe for about a year having to deal with that. So I had a house here with a mortgage that needed to be paid. So I spoke to my neighbors, all of them, across the street, behind us, on either side, and I speak to them every single year before I update my license. The house is inspected every single year. My private residence is not. And every single time I say to my neighbors, you have my number. If there is ever a problem, please call me. I think there are responsible Airbnb homeowners and there are irresponsible ones. So to Mr. Ledoux's point and to the community, there are a lot of things that we can do to make it better. The gentleman was talking about 14 people in a house. The Airbnb rule in Annapolis is very clear. No more than 8 people. It's not ambiguous, it's super clear. I think it's an enforcement issue more than an existing issue. And as a family that has children, when I travel, and I travel more than the average bear, I almost always travel on Airbnb or VRBO or something like that, because I don't want to be in a hotel confined by the time of the breakfast and have all 4 of us sharing a bathroom, whatever. I find that travel that way is very, very comfortable. It brings people into the area, and the guests that we have really like Annapolis. They are the ones on Main Street at the restaurants and the different stores spending more money than most of the residents here are on Main Street shopping in those stores or going to those restaurants. So I just think it should be considered that it's not that they're all bad, but we just maybe need to get a handle on the current rules, enforce what we have, and get a hold of the ones that are creating problems. By all means, the residents of Annapolis should not have big, loud parties and drunk people falling down the steps in their residence. I mean, I think that's really unfair. That seems to be a particular property, though, and not all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I ask a question?
Did you want to testify on the short-term rentals?
Something that she said, I think is incorrect.
You can speak once. He already spoke on this one.
David Weimer again. I think I've checked with the code and the regulations, and there's no, according to the Annapolis code, I think what Wendy said is wrong.
Mr. Weimer,
there's no way to limit the number of residents.
We cannot have you speak again. You've already used 4 minutes or 3 minutes before.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
I didn't use my entire time, but can somebody answer that question? Because the code does not allow you to limit the number of residents in a home. So I think what she said is incorrect.
Sir, you can write your question down and submit it, and we'll take care of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who has not spoken? I declare the public hearing on 03223 closed. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is legislative action on first readers, beginning with ordinance 02723, City of Annapolis Electrical Code Update.
Is there a motion to adopt 02723 on first reader?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I hear none. Refer 02723 to the Economic Matters Committee. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is ordinance 02923, food truck parking and mobile food service in the City of Annapolis.
Is there a motion to adopt 02923 on first reader?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. We will refer 02923 to the Economic Matters Committee. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is ordinance 03323, expiration of special exceptions to city zoning requirements.
Is there a motion to adopt 03323 on first reader?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I hear none. I refer 03323 to the Rules and City Government Committee and the Planning Commission. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is Resolution R4623, Tucker Street Boat Trailer Permit Non-Resident Fee Increase.
Is there a motion to adopt R 4623 on first reader?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Who seconded?
Alderman Arnett.
Or not?
I did.
Who opposed? Oh, no one? Okay. Second, okay. We refer R 4623 to the Finance Committee. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is Resolution R5023, 2023 Military Bowl Parade and Football Game.
Is there a motion to adopt R 5023 on first reader?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I hear none. Alderman Shandemeyer.
Point of clarification, question on R5023 for the acting mayor or for the city attorney or for anyone who may have this information or the assistant city manager. Is there a sense of urgency in R50 or are we able to hold and kind of go through the traditional process?
The game is at the end of the year, is that correct? End of December?
Which is coming up soon, so I don't know if we have to accelerate this or we can go through the regular motions.
Have it at the next meeting.
This is first reading.
This is first reading.
Yeah, it is first reader, but do we need to try to suspend rules or accelerate anything? I'm just trying to find out if there's a timeline on it.
I'm not aware of a request to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
So what was the time again?
we should be fine.
It's the same year, December the
December
27th. Yeah.
End of December.
But there is no sense of urgency, the assistant manager said, so I take back
I
any
think we're
issues.
good. I think we're good. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda? Say that again, sir. Did I say it?
I think they got it.
This will be referred to Finance Committee. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is legislative action on second readers, beginning with Charter Amendment CA 223, Management Information Technology Office name change.
Is a motion to adopt CA 223 on second reader?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. Is there a motion to adopt CA 223 on third reader?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Acting Mayor Kendall Charles,
Aye.
Alderman Gay,
Aye.
Alderman Savage,
Aye.
Alderman Arnett,
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson,
Aye.
Alderman Shandemeyer.
Aye.
Okay, passes.
Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is Ordinance O4922, Planning and Zoning, Parking and Loading Regulations.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Alderman Savage.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone, and I can give my rationale if it's seconded.
Second.
So my rationale primarily is, two reasons. The sponsor, one of the primary sponsors is not here tonight of this legislation, and so I think we should give it a courtesy of postponement. And two, I still need to sit down with Alderman Arnett now that he's back in the good old USFA and work out some issues.
Okay. So is there a motion to withdraw O4922?
Postpone until, my motion would be to postpone until.
Second meeting in November.
Second meeting in October?
Okay, all right. Is there a motion to postpone this item to the second meeting in October?
We just made a motion.
Motion moved and seconded.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I hear none. Motion passed. Okay. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is Ordinance O5422, Sign Regulations, Shopping Center Sign Requirements.
So moved.
Second.
I have a question on this action. Madam Chair.
Yes, Alderman Gay.
Thank you. Is this, it's saying shopping centers in B2 community shopping zone districts, but I don't see what where the B2 is, or how many areas this would impact.
Who's the sponsor of this legislation?
B2 is around the city. It's the business commercial zones, but I would say the preponderance of it is in Ward 8 and Ward 2.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
Downtown is in the C1, C1A.
Okay, I see it here. What's the purpose, though? I mean, have you received complaints in
Yeah,
regards to
the
signage?
purpose is that a few years ago, we passed legislation talking about not having internally lit signs. And the thing that we didn't consider at the time is there were a lot of existing shopping centers with already a kind of signage. And so either to conform with the new code, they would either have two different kinds of signage in the shopping center, or they would have to change all of their signage to not internally lit.
I'm sorry, you're saying internally lit signage, meaning like an open sign, which I see in almost every store in the country?
Internally lit is where you would have say the letter O, and the lighting would be inside that letter O.
Yeah, so like a traditional.
Yeah, like in most of the country.
So how would a business advertise?
No, that's signage. We're not disallowing signage. What we're doing is for pre-existing conditions where they had internally lit signs, they can continue to replace. A new business comes in with a new name, they can put that new name on the business with the same kind of lighting that they've had all along for all the other businesses in the shopping center.
Okay, I appreciate that. I would hope that it can be explained a little clearer. It just literally says, for the purpose of expanding sign requirements, exceptions regarding front lit signage for shopping centers in B2 community shopping zoning districts. That does not speak to what you were just saying, so I appreciate that.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
I was just going to clarify that they internally lit does not mean that internal inside the building, correct? If you could see. So it's a sign that has lighting on the inside of it, if you could.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
So that it's the way the sign is presented, and I believe that it's trying to create continuity within, for instance, Bay Ridge community where like the Giant is and the other places. That's before this legislation, some of those businesses weren't allowed to have signs that were lit from the outside, so therefore maybe not being able to market their business as much as something like Giant, where you're driving down the road and you see the big Giant sign because it's all well lit from inside the sign.
Okay, thank you. And I'm also confused. Why is there a advertisement receipt attached to the staff report? It says affidavit _ TVS. I'm not even sure what that is.
Alderman Arnett?
I don't know, I couldn't understand the question.
There is it says public hearing ad affidavit.
Ms. Regina?
Because it was referred to the planning commission, that's the report from the planning commission that was directed by the department director. If you open them up, you'll see it came from the department.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I was confused on that too. I just see Baltimore Sun and I'm thinking they are getting in on this. So thank you.
So it's been moved and seconded on second reader. Is that correct? Can I hear all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. Third reader? Can I hear a motion for third reader?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call. Exactly. Roll call. Madam Clerk.
Acting Mayor Pendell Charles.
Aye.
Alderman Gay.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Aye. Alderman Finlayson.
Aye.
Alderman Shannon Meyer.
Aye.
Thank you, that passes.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is ordinance 01723, administration requiring the city manager to provide staffing impact statements on pending legislation.
Is there a motion to adopt 01723 on second reader?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and we'll deal with the amendments. I'm sorry.
It's only a second. It's not all in favor right there. If
Say
I
it
moved it,
again.
I apologize. It's only a second, because then they do discussion document.
Alderman Savage.
It's not my amendment, but I would like to move, was somebody else going to speak to it, the amendments, or?
Madam Chair, I'd like to speak to the first two amendments.
Yes,
to try to
Alderwoman
clarify
Finlayson.
some things. Because when I sponsored this original legislation, it was really muddied because it added some corrections that were not intended, that spoke to finance and other issues. So the first two amendments were an attempt to take it back to the original intent. The original intent of this legislation is to simply require that we have a staffing impact statement when legislation is introduced. Currently, we have a fiscal impact note that comes when before second reader. I felt that this needed to happen prior to a public hearing so the community would know what they're speaking to. They will know truly the impact of our legislation and whether our staff can accomplish what we are setting out for them to do. So the first two amendments are simply to clean that up so that it takes it back to simply requiring a staffing impact statement when the legislation is introduced. Alderman Arnett then has, and you can speak to those if you'd like, but that kind of clarifies it even further.
If I may?
Yeah, Alderman Arnett.
No, I agree with Alderwoman Finlayson. We heard from staff that they would need additional time and that they might not be able to get it done in time for the public hearing. And my opinion is let staff have the additional time. We want them to take the time. I think when we see legislation, we need to know the text of the legislation. We need to know the fiscal impact. We need to know the staff analysis of the legislation, and we need to know the impact on staff. And I feel over my 17 years here on the council, quite often we don't consider what we're dumping on the staff. And eventually that comes back to bite us, and it eventually increase costs. So all of these amendments are simply to say, we don't introduce the legislation until we have all the pieces, the text, the staff analysis, the financial impact, and the impact on our staff. And by the way, staff impacts could be additional burdens on current staff, or it could be that we need new, different kinds of staff to implement it. So, and again, the general thrust of this is, let's not introduce legislation until we have all the pieces.
Thank you. Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Yeah, I do support this. I think I've been back and forth, but the Amendment 3 really addresses, I think, one of my concerns in that it makes it clear, and I think this was also a concern from our colleague, but it makes it clear that if there's a situation where staff is unable to get the staff report in time, that it can only be delayed, I think, until the next council meeting. So if it gets to the next council meeting, it's going to go on the agenda automatically, which I think is good because it prevents any kind of log jams from happening. And I do want to clarify, if my reading was correct, it appears that Amendment 3 consolidates all the previous 3 amendments into one does it all at once. And so if that's the correct, I think we just need a motion on Amendment 3.
So what are we going to do with amendments 1, 2, and 2A?
Let them die.
Not
could we
move them.
Move them together?
We can defeat those, or we can, I can withdraw 1 and 2.
Madam City
You don't have
Clerk?
to take any action on any amendments you don't want to. It's just listed. You
It
can
just-
move what you want.
It
Okay.
just dies if no
So
motion
we
is
should
made.
defeat 1, 2, and 3.
No, just no
vote on
action,
amendment
because if
No
we don't
action.
make a motion, it
Okay.
dies. So I would like to make a motion on Amendment 3.
So move.
Can I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. Is there a motion to adopt 01723 with amendment number 3? Second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I hear none. Is there a motion to vote on whether the amendments to 01723 are substantive? I hear none. Is there a motion to adopt 01723 as amended on second reader?
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I hear none. Is there a motion to adopt 01723 on third reader? Is there a second? Madam City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Acting Mayor Kendall Charles.
Aye.
Alderman Gay.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett. Alderwoman O'Neill.
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson.
Aye.
Alderman Shannon Meyer.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney?
It's the second part. No, we did the first part.
Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is Ordinance 01823, Management Information Technology Office Name Change.
Is there a motion to adopt 01823 on second reader?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. Is there a motion to adopt 01823 on third reader?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, ma'am. Acting Mayor Kendall Charles.
Aye.
Alderman Gay.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson.
Aye.
And Alderman Shannon Meyer.
Aye.
Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is Ordinance 02123, Landlord-Tenant Relations Relocation Expenses.
I'm sending this
Alderman Gay?
sending it back to committee so that we do not get sued by Maryland District Court.
Second.
What committee?
Do I need a motion to
What
send it back to?
committee? You say.
Oh,
you
House
sent
and
it
Human Welfare, yeah, send it back to House.
Second.
All right, I heard a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I hear none. I abstain. Mr. City Attorney, would you please call the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is Ordinance 02423, Issuance of General Obligation Bonds and Bond Anticipation Notes.
Is there a motion to adopt 02423 on second reader?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Then I have a proposed amendment. Number 1, substitute bill by Mayor Buckley. Anyone that want to speak on that? Thank you, Ms. Jody.
Yes, the amendment substitutes the language in total from the first draft. The first draft had some issues with the wording, and instead of trying to piecemeal those changes throughout the ordinance, we decided to provide a complete new writing of the ordinance. So that's trying to fix a drafting error.
Okay. Any questions of Ms. Dickinson? Alderman Gay.
I'm not sure, and I'm always asked just what I don't understand. It's saying here in the staff report, The legislation will allow the city to secure funding so that specified capital projects may proceed as intended by the city council approved capital budget. Is there certain ones that are, or is this just the entire capital budget?
It is the entire capital budget. We are asking for the authority to borrow money to fund the capital projects that are included in the capital budget for FY '24 and prior years for
Awesome.
any debt we haven't issued.
And that's the exhibit one. I appreciate that. I just didn't know if there were certain projects or all.
No, if you follow that exhibit down the lines, you'll see that aligns with the CIP book, project by project.
Awesome, thank you.
Anyone else with questions? Okay. Do I hear a motion to amend O2423 on second reader?
So moved.
Second.
Nobody moved the amendment.
Oh, I thought there was.
No, nobody moved the amendment. You talked about it. but nobody
Oh,
moved it.
yes. Can I hear a motion to move the amendment number 1?
So moved.
Second.
Thank
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I hear none. Is there a motion to amend O2423
Adopt as amended.
on second reader?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. Is there a motion to vote on whether the amendments to O2423 are substantive?
Change the whole thing.
Is there a motion to adopt O2423 as amended on second reader?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none. Is there a motion to adopt O2423 on third reader?
So moved.
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Madam
Any
Chair,
opposed? Yes.
before we roll call, this will be, the one that we are, the amendment that we're accepting isn't signed or filled out as, like the other one is. Is that a problem, or?
It gets filled out once you adopt it.
Oh, the other one is already filled out, so I just didn't, okay.
Yeah, once you adopt it, they put in the
Awesome,
information
okay.
at the bottom. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt O2423 on third reader?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Acting Mayor Pendle Charles,
Aye.
Alderman Gay, Alderman Savage,
Aye.
Alderman Arnett,
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson,
Aye.
and Alderman Shandemeyer is out of the room. So it passes.
Okay. Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is Resolution R4323, Public Water Access at the Wells Cove Inlet in Eastport.
Is there a motion to adopt all 4323 on second reader? Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have two amendments, both by Alderman Savage. Yes, Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Yeah, I would like to just go over a few things. I'm going to be quick because a lot of this was already run over and I'm starting to get hungry. But, so, people already went over the genesis. I want to just emphasize again what the law is currently, to just reiterate a few things. We have a resolution from City Council from 1988, which called for the public access easement. And we have the 1990, and we also have an email we just received from the alderwoman at the time, who, Ellen Moyer, who represented that ward and confirmed the intent. We have the 1992 easement, platted easement, so that took place after the resolution. And we have the judge's ruling, which confirmed both the easement, 92 easement, and confirmed the intent of the resolution. And to confirm, as somebody already mentioned, the judge's ruling was that there's no stay on appeal, which means that her ruling, is a matter of law unless it's overturned. But there's no stay on that. And so what that ruling states is that no party, no entity may impede the public's access. And she said there's unambiguous access for the public with that 92 easement. So I honestly don't really know why people are even objecting to the public access easement. It's been on the books for so long. It's in their deeds. It's in everything else. So ultimately, this resolution really should not be needed, but the fact, as was already mentioned, the city's not being proactive to honor not only the judge's decision, but honor the resolution from the city council back in '88, I think is why this is unfortunately needed. So I want to clarify a few things about what the resolution would do. It does not, as was indicated, void any property rights. It doesn't impede property rights. And it's kind of ironic to hear comments made about impeding property rights when the appeal is trying to impede public access rights. But in any case, the resolution does not do any of that. What the resolution does states that the council wants a sign put up. And so that sign could be put up in the city's right-of-way. It doesn't even have to go into the easement. So there's no prohibition on that. We can do whatever we want on our property. The resolution would also just simply ask that the city request the deed of easement, and that ability to request the deed for the easement is actually included in the platted easement from 1992. It's stated right on there. The city may request at any time, and it has to be granted, given to the city. The third thing it would do is state that we want the water route to be clear. So the public has access, as the judge said, public has riparian rights, has access to the water, and so we need to make sure the water is clear so they can actually get to the creek proper. Again, that's outside the easement, that's in the water itself. So we have the legal ability to do any of those things, and there's no mention at all about impeding property rights at all. So for somebody to say that is just completely misstatement and misdirection. So I think there's also some confusion about the intention of the roles of a resolution versus an ordinance. We do plenty of things that have the force of law with a resolution, just like we did tonight. We can waive fees, waive standards, we can approve events, approve leases, we approve the fees and fines, all kinds of things with resolutions that have legal weight. And if you look at how this is worded, it's worded specifically to not get into the details about how the city should do X, Y, and Z, but it clearly makes clear what our intent is and what we would like to see done. And so I think there's a lot of these items in the resolution that we need to follow up with, hopefully once it passes, that we can follow up with staff about how to get some of these things done. But bottom line is, I'll just say, I think we as a body need to also, in my view, also think about supporting our predecessors. They were very clear with their 1988 resolution. The judge confirmed that. The alderwoman at the time confirmed that. And I feel like we need to do our part to make sure that resolution is honored. I would certainly want our resolutions to also be honored by future councils. We also need to support, obviously, the public. This is intent, that's why it was put in there, to benefit the public. And we are the only ones, as was mentioned by some testimony, to step in. We're obligated by the charter to step in to help the public and to support the rule of law. So I will end it there. I do have 2 amendments I can go over once we get finished with discussion.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Alderman Gay.
I'll make a motion to move amendments 1 and 2.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I hear none. Is there a motion to vote on whether the amendments to R 4323 are substantive? Hearing none. Is there a motion to adopt R 4323 as amended on second reader?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Is this for final vote? I'm sorry, point of order. Before we do final vote, and I apologize, I had to run to the
That's fine.
restroom. I have a couple questions for our law office, just to clarify some questions I had that we weren't able to.
Absolutely, Alderman Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So a lot of what is kind of confusing me in some of the debates in the ether, something that we had brought up in the past is that the judge's decision had voided the previous easement that we had or agreement that we had to keep this open to the public, and I am unsure why that is. Are you able to touch to that?
Alderman Schandelmeyer, as Mr. Hartman alluded to earlier, this is still the subject of ongoing litigation. The Office of Law has taken the stance that we're not going to comment on it at this time.
Okay. Do I keep going down my list of questions then?
Go right ahead.
All right then.
Determined district court.
That's really disappointing. I thought they were pretty good questions and they could have helped me.
You can continue with your questions, Alderman Schandelmeyer, if you wish.
I feel like it's pointless now, so let's just do this thing.
Alderman Gay?
Actually, I do have one. What are the consequences if we act? And what are the consequences if we don't act? Like, let's say we go forward, this resolution passes, we do the things listed in it as listed. What is the consequence if the appeal succeeds? Is that a thing we are allowed to comment on?
I don't think it is, Alderman.
Okay, then I yield my time.
Alderman Savage?
I mean, I think you heard me respond to some of that, but I guess I could offer that the judge did state in her decision some of the reasons for voiding. So she didn't void the easement, she voided the deeded easement to the city. So but she said the original still stands. And I believe one of the rationale for the judge doing that was because the attempt to get the deeded easement in 2021, the language was too restrictive compared to the original easement. As far as the consequences, again, I think that's a good question. We touched on it in the committee a bit. But everything that's in this would be very easily reversible if we need to do so. But the judge, again, said no stay, so there's no reason for us to really not take any action. As was alluded to, the public's been using this easement for a long, long time. And again, I think if we don't act, I think we just risk turning our back on that very long precedent and the original intention of the council.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor. I guess my question goes towards Alderman Schandelmeyer's, is that I don't exactly understand what was lost in the judge's stay versus if I were to walk down there right now, I'm allowed to go down, but what we're asking of our city manager and technically our harbor master is that there's actually a sign that says, so that if I'm unfamiliar, as somebody had said they were unfamiliar with the space, that it is very clearly public access. It is public access, but it's not very clearly so. Is that correct?
Yes.
So my question basically is, if we were to go forward with this, it's just basically asking for that sign. It's not granting us any additional.
The courts have already.
Thank you.
Any additional?
Sorry, any additional
Prerogatives.
advantages.
Right.
Advantages or any additional.
It's within the limits of the original easement and the original resolution, which is what the judge confirmed. As one of the sponsors, I have no interest in going beyond what is currently there. I think some of the things the resolution calls for, I think, I'll just say it.
Less is more.
Yeah.
Ms. Guile, did you want to come forward? No. Okay, thank you. Alderman Gay.
Did Alderman Savage ask you to come up?
No, no one asked you.
Let's vote.
And then my question lastly, just before we vote.
Yes, Alderman Gay.
I clearly, I don't own a home. And this, as I mentioned in the Housing and Human Welfare meeting, was the 82 thing. My mom was 3 in 1982, and so this far surpasses my family. My question, though, is that when you purchase a home, is the realtor or developing company not obligated to share with you, and particularly if there is easement access to a city government, those details? I'm curious if the homeowners have ever been told that, that yes, this is city property, or are they doing such a good job of pretending that they never knew that this was was city access? This was city land that promotes access to the general public. I'm confused on that. Is that something that's been answered through? Because you mentioned earlier, and the gentleman mentioned something completely different. He said that when he purchased the home, that there was no mention of the easement being owned by the city.
Buyer beware.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the deed it's in the platted project, the platted, so all the easements are listed. So I can't speak to what they were informed of, but actually, no, I can't, because I've seen some of the documentation that it's actually in the Blue Heron condo, what's the word? Not their bylaws, but the covenants or something for that entity. It's in there as far as this easement's actually in there. So it's been in multiple documents, multiple plans. So I don't think.
And even if you were to resell a home, like say you did buy it in like '85, if you were to resell that, that's something that you would probably be obligated to tell the new property owner, I'm assuming. Okay, I just wanted clarity for the.
Thank you, Alderman Gay. Any other questions before we move forward on third reader? Nope. And calling the roll. Madam City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Acting Mayor Pendell Charles.
Aye.
Alderman Gay.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson.
Aye.
Alderman Shandelmeyer.
Aye.
Okay, passes.
Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is Resolution R4823, establishing a task force to study the city's grant programs.
Motion to adopt R 4823 on second reader?
Second.
And a second?
Second.
Madam City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Acting Mayor Pendell Charles.
Aye.
Alderman Gay.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill. Alderman Finlayson.
Aye.
Alderman Shandelmeyer.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The next item on the agenda is Resolution R4923, Commission to Plan Celebrations for the 250th Anniversary of the United States of America.
Is there a motion to adopt R 4923 on second reader?
So moved.
Second.
I hear second?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, not trying to be difficult here, but I do have a question about just wonder why is this not just rolled into the next year, or what would that be, 2026, 25? Why isn't it just rolled into that planning process for the 4th of July? Why is this needed in addition to our regular, I don't know exactly how it's done normally, but.
The state of Maryland has put together a commission, as has other states put together a commission. And this city commission really is to make sure that the city of Annapolis is at the table for those discussions as we are starting to plan.
Thank you. I'm not gonna.
I just want to make sure that your question, that you received a sufficient answer.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Gay?
Thank you. I'm not going to offer the amendment on the floor. However, I did notice in the whereas clauses, it completely skipped any mention of slavery, the stripes that we went through for 400 years. I think that should be included in here, and particularly not just for the founding of the United States, but the founding of the city. And so I hope that we include that language somewhere and make it a priority that for this 250th anniversary, we acknowledge that in our planning process or in our parade or something. I appreciate that.
I don't know if there would be a committee with your service would be lent at that time. So you might want to inquire about serving on one of the committees.
Banneker Douglas is included.
I'm sorry, Alderman
I
Finley.
said Banneker Douglas is included as one of the organizations, so
So, absolutely, thank you. Madam City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Acting Mayor Kendall Charles.
Aye.
Alderman Gay.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson.
Aye.
Alderman Chandler Meyer.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, would you please present the next item on the agenda?
The agenda is completed.
Is there anything else for the good of the order? Alderwoman
Happy
O'Neill usually has
birthday.
something?
Yes, happy birthday. Of course.
Oh, okay. Whose birthday? Your birthday?
Alderwoman O'Neill's birthday.
All right. We can sing happy birthday. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Karma. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Motion to adjourn.
There'll be no items on the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All in
Second.
favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Hearing the opposition, this matter evening has closed at 9:33.
A little bit of harmony.